She'd be proud.
She said, I named you David. Imagine a little Asian woman yelling at me. So, Mark, what can you tell us? Can you tell us the boat controversy?
Goodness, there was a whole size of the boat controversy, wasn't there? We wanted a tiny boat, but Jeremy Podeswa had a whole sequence in another episode with the stone men jumping onto the boat in Old Valyria. So we ended up with this vast galleon which poor Ian Glenn has to single-handedly shove out into the lake, which manfully he did.
Remember that lake, despite looking like a real lake, is about 2 feet deep for most of it.
It's a quarry, is it? What's, or is it an actual
This
lake?
one, no, that's the one we used for Hardhome. This one is an
right.
actual, pretty much an inland sea around Antrim in Northern Ireland.
It's the largest body of freshwater in the UK. This and Loch Lomond is largest by volume, and this is largest by surface area, for a very nerdy fact.
That's a fantastically nerdy fact.
Nice, you're going to keep coming out with
I'm here
those,
for.
Dave. That's fantastic.
Got a million of them.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
By the way, I'm single, ladies. I want to put that out there.
One of my favourite moments in the script, just whipped by Nikolai's character getting a reminder of Brienne of Tarth. This scene below decks was built on a stage with this fantastically expensive gimbal system so that the boat could rock on kind of 3 axes. So every time you got on and off of the set, it was like getting on and off of a fairground ride. Things would have to stop and slow down, then we'd bring the stairway up and then we'd step on and off. Consequently, it took an age to shoot the scene, and it drives me crazy whenever I watch it because it was kind of me that made the call on how much the boat should rock. And now I look at the finished cut, I never once noticed the boat rocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Dean. Thanks for helping me out on that.
Did you make the actors feel a bit sick? Because that sometimes happens.
Well, it kind of was my concern that we didn't get too nauseous because it was a long scene to shoot. But I think there's maybe 2 moments where you can actually see a little bit of moving shadow to suggest the boat is actually rocking. And of course, we could have just waved the lamp around to achieve that effect.
So is this in Banbridge? Is this the...
This is down in Banbridge.
And they have the hydraulic things attached to this, right?
Yeah, it's quite an ingenious invention, and I hope I get to shoot another scene on it so I can actually use it properly next time.
This is another perfect example
Shout
of
out to
game
Annette,
of...
our gorgeous DP.
Oh yeah, Annette. Very nice, as always. I was just going to say, this is another unlikely pairing of Game of Thrones characters. That's what the show does so well, is... you know, the what-ifs questions. If you put this character with this character, what would their dialogue be like? You get to play those kind of games a lot, don't you, Dave?
Oh, yes. Actually, this whole plotline, Jaime going to Dorne with Bronn, is producer Brian Cogman's idea. We were, as of season 4, not going to Dorne. And then he came with an idea of how to show it using one of our main characters, kind of get people invested in it. And we thought, that's great. These two would have a lot to say together. It'd be fun. So... let's do it, and now we have it. And also, I think Dave and Dan want to go to Spain, and they figured out this is the way to do it.
Yeah, that's probably the main reason, right?
Yeah.
The Iron Bank has called in 1/10 of the Crown's debt. Given the expense of rebuilding the royal fleet...
How much can the Crown afford?
My bumbling father.
When you're new to the project, walking into this room full of actors is almost comically intimidating until you actually get in there and realise what a lovely bunch of people they are. But this was the scene I was probably most terrified of shooting because there's such a kind of room full of great British talent in there.
No, we must arrange better terms with the Iron Bank.
Absolutely.
In person.
Me?
We must send an envoy to the Iron Bank.
I mean, if you're intimidated, Mark, imagine how I feel. At least you know what you're doing.
I thought you showed great confidence throughout, actually.
Oh, yeah, whiskey does that.
Learn about his father-in-law's safety on this voyage. He's ordered Cimmerian.
I love the comments that Roger, I was talking to Roger about his character, and he had this kind of subtext to Mace that actually there's a bit of an I, Claudius thing going on, that actually he plays this buffoon, but actually it's kind of a survival mechanism on some level, which I really liked.
Oh, is that what he said?
I mean,
Very
unlike many
interesting.
people on our show, he's still around. These small council scenes are always really actually hard to write because everyone's sitting down. It's very hard to make them interesting and active. Especially now that we're lacking like Charles Dance holding down the fort there.
Right, yep.
May I offer you some wine, Your Holiness?
Oh, Jonathan Pryce.
This was, of course, Jonathan's first day on set with us. Jonathan Pryce playing the High Sparrow, and he walked on. We had a very brief conversation about the level of kind of true altruism of the character, and then we had a quick rehearsal and then went for the first take. And it was so embarrassing from my point of view because I didn't have a single note to give him. It was so perfect from the start.
He's
it was
brilliant.
really annoying. Quite extraordinary.
Bodies of holy men piled in the streets.
I remember actually, I think, Mark, you coming out to like the producer's monitors after like the second take. I was like, I think we've got the whole thing basically. And I was like, yeah. Brian Cogman, who was also there, the producer, I've never seen him as like giddy and anxious as meeting Jonathan Pryce, who's like one of his heroes. Like he saw them in a play when he was
I have no doubt he
12 or 13. Has been his idol ever since. And Brian's usually a very loquacious person, but around Jonathan Pryce, he was just kind of shaking. And yes, Jonathan. Nice to meet you, Jonathan. Big fan.
as the chosen representative of the Seven,
An honor I never expected, or indeed ever wished for.
which is why you were chosen.
I think if we actually people have been noticing how we changed this scene from the books, where it's more the High Sparrow's idea to arm the faith. We wanted to make Cersei more active here, more complicit in her eventual downfall. Make it her idea that she grabs the serpent.
Right. The idea being that, of course, the character is ceding power to Margaery constantly and is desperate to get some foothold.
She needs new allies.
Shielded by gold and privilege.
May the Father judge him justly.
It's just so fantastic that Game of Thrones finds yet another, this many seasons in, yet another exploration of power or power play in its different form. And fanaticism, religious passion being a whole new coup and a whole new area of power play to explore that we haven't really had yet.
Yep. So, yeah, it becomes a theme throughout this season, doesn't it?
And very relevant to the modern world as well.
Yeah, as people get more at times get more desperate.
Yeah, quite. Could not be more pertinent. Your virtue eyes, Dean.
Yes.
Yeah, I love this shot, Mark. This tracking shot. I remember shooting in the brothels a little confined.
Let's take a little moment there for the man in the middle there who's just been beaten up, who had to have two beautiful, very naked ladies sat astride him all day. I asked him at one point if he was comfortable with that. He replied, very comfortable, thank you.
How proper.
Boy, fucker. You buggering filth.
There's a special place in the seventh hell for your kind.
Please, I'll pay. I'll pay all of you.
Yes, you will.
Where are we here, Mark? What location?
This is the city walls of old Dubrovnik in Croatia, not far from where you're presently, well, in neighbouring country anyway. On the city walls there. Very difficult place to shoot because it's so popular as a UNESCO site. It's an extraordinary ancient city. And consequently there are dozens of cruise ships coming through, people walking the city walls. So to get that kind of scale, and here's Natalie Dormer.
Why is my brother in a cell?
I don't know. I didn't order it.
God, I hate watching myself.
Who told me she was returning to Casterly Rock?
Are you saying my mother's behind this?
She's jealous you're not hers anymore. That
Arresting
perfect
my
RP accent, Disu.
Aren't you and mother getting along?
Yeah, I should try and
Always makes me laugh when you hearing Dean talk in his normal voice and then hearing him
Yeah,
talk
my
to
accent's
Tommen.
terrible. It's
Such a
terrible.
London boy.
Yeah.
Essex.
In the previous episode, in fact, the first scene we shot together, Natalie and Dean, we had this quite intimate scene with the two of you in bed. How difficult was that for you to shoot with the age difference? And was that difficult, or was it just part of being an actor?
I was just nervous.
What?
I was just,
Well,
I
it
was
was
nervous, man. That's
yeah.
it.
It was one of those situations where we all tried to navigate it as a team as appropriately and respectfully as we could, wasn't it? To the books and to George's original story.
You gave the High Sparrow an army.
I keep being asked about this constantly from journalists at the moment.
And your wife has
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, they're really grabbing hold of it. And I find it so interesting because there's a long list of, male and female co-stars where the gendered role is the opposite way round and no one bats an eyelid, It's,
Yep.
but as soon as it's the woman that is older, everyone has got a comment to make, which I think is very, is very interesting.
Yeah, it's very telling, isn't it? There's a quote from Maggie Gyllenhaal in the press this morning that she was, at age 37, she was considered too old to play the partner of a 55-year-old man in a film.
Wow.
I went to the British Film Institute and watched the director's cut of Blade Runner the other week, which is an incredible movie. It's such a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Young is 22, I think, in that movie, and Harrison Ford is in his 40s, early 40s. And Hollywood is still functions like that today. And everyone was sort of like, didn't you feel disturbed about, doing this with DC? And I was like, he's legal. He is legal as an actor. Back off. And also, I have to say, I didn't cast myself. If you've got a problem, you need to be talking to David and Dan, and not to me.
Yeah.
I just do what the script tells me to do.
Yeah, it's
Just
like
go
a
with the
folio
flow.
idea.
We had a very sensitive. You were very good, Mark. We had a very good. I know we're talking about another episode at this point, but it's probably worth mentioning. But Mark and I, we had a very in-depth and respectful phone conversation with each other, didn't we? As to find a way to working it out. So.
Yes, it was important to get that early, wasn't it? Because of the character's nudity and the level of manipulation of the character using her sexuality. Oh, I did want to jump in on this moment, Natalie. I loved a choice you made right at this moment here, where the character goes so quiet in the face of the news she's getting. Can you tell me about that choice? You told me a great story about why you'd made that choice.
And you let a band of fanatics imprison your brother by law.
Yeah, I mean, we had to go one way or the other, didn't we? I mean, she knows the seriousness of the situation here. It's fatal, almost literally.
Just now.
And I told you a story, I think, Mark, about a very bad experience I had in a hot air balloon. I had a dangerous hot air balloon ride a few years ago, me and my other half, and we had a crash, effectively. And he said that he learned something about me in that moment, that when I was faced with mortal danger, I go very, very, very quiet.
Lord Commander of the Night.
So we thought it would be interesting, therefore, I thought it would be interesting to stick to that choice with Margaery, that when the shit really does hit the fan, she goes quiet and not loud.
I should have given you a son.
For me, it made the moment, twice as powerful. I loved that instinct because the chess player, of course, the ongoing themes of power in the series. It just it amplified that moment that she saw the move that Cersei had made. And again, like a good chess player sees 20 moves ahead to where that could possibly lead. And as you say, how lethal that choice could have been, that move could have been. So she understood instinctively the full potential ramifications of that action.
It's always more powerful, like the quiet.
Whereas I've just been gabbling the whole way over that scene, I was going to say, DC, how did you feel about those two scenes?
Once before you put your faith in Sir Devos, behind.
I mean, it's a tough position that Tommen's in that point of the story, because I mean, he's so young. It's just like, when I watch it as a fan, it's just like I want to get hold of him and just shake him up, you know, just for him to grow a pair and just do something about it, because he just seems to be under the thumb with everyone. I just think he needs to grow up and become his own man.
I mean, it is asking a lot of a character to assume such a bewildering amount of power so young. Of course, the character's almost bound to be manipulated by others more senior.
I always find it fun because so many people hated Joffrey. But Tommen's like a fundamentally decent person, and he doesn't want to kill priests. He doesn't want to disobey his mother. He wants to please his wife. He's like, wants to do all the right things, and people are so frustrated by it.
Yeah.
You want him to go psycho and just start killing people.
Yeah, it brings out the best deal in all
exactly.
of us.
Game of Thrones, yeah, great.
He's a good kid.
Not him. I know. I'm sorry, but we need men and supplies. And Roose Bolton's the Warden of the North.
Murdered my brother.
We swore to be the watchers on the wall. We can't watch the wall with 50 men. And we can't get more men without help from the Warden of the North.
Yeah, remember, this is actually an example of what we keep trying to do more and more in Game of Thrones, but having 4 or 5 different storylines all flung all the way across the world, as many chances as we can to tie them all together. Like mentioning Dany in the King's Landing storylines, mentioning Roose Bolton in the North and the Wall storylines, just trying to give the sense of an overall world that's actually coherent.
Apologies, my lady.
Is there a sense throughout the season of trying to start to bring those worlds closer together, Dave? Was that part of the kind of brief for the series?
Very much so. We always kind of envisioned season 4 is kind of the halfway point. And now, I mean, a lot of the storylines in season 5 are disparate characters meeting for the first time, or being thrown together. We're bringing everything back home.
Its weaknesses, its people.
You know, us as a cast, we love watching the solutions that you guys are coming up with for the more convoluted and the more tangents that happen in the books, and tying them all together. It's really 3-dimensional chess.
There's only one war.
Yeah, I mean, the demands of like a 5th series of television are just so different. Like in the novel, you can have 4,000 pages, and you can just you can explore every little facet and, you know, twist and turn. Whereas we need to start, yeah, exactly, honing everything in.
No magic. Just life.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
It's always so strange, no matter how many I do of them, when any kind of sexual content in a scene, actually where one starts when you get there in the morning with the cast and actually start to block these moments through. And one thing that I've kind of stayed true with is this idea of actually giving a choreography, almost a count, you know, hand to thigh, 2, 3, raise hand, 2, 3, and actually starting with that very kind of choreographed structure. It gives us somewhere to start from, and hopefully, you know, and then of course as the takes evolve and we start to forget about that, and we start to find the true moments in the characters' one. But it's like you have to get over the hump, excuse the pun. To get back into those moments, which these two did terribly well together.
I mean, it's so hard. It never gets any easier. I mean, Dean's first sort of bedroom scene that we did together in the previous episode. But I mean, I'm a veteran at this point, and you know, still as you say, Mark, as a kind of tricky at the beginning of the day as ever.
I loved another.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm always grateful once we get a few takes under our belt. The puns are coming thick and fast.
No. But I still love her.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I love that moment.
Carice nailed it.
Yeah. I'm constantly amazed by just how much the cast can underplay and still be so effective. They get so small. You guys make such tiny choices, and yet I'm always reading the subtext, reading all those levels in the performance. It's so good. Quite an extraordinary cast.
Really? You notice that with the Game of Thrones cast, do you? Like...
More so than any cast I've ever worked with. That's no disrespect to other casts, but in terms of what goes on in the subtext, I don't remember ever working on anything where I see such, such busyness behind the eyes in such a good way.
I thought I'd be left at home.
I mean, I know like Brian and I just are amazed every day. It's basically like a drug. Seeing the actors add so much to your words and just nail it so much, you want more and more. Like I can't wait to be back on the set.
Yep.
But yeah, our cast is phenomenal.
And it is quite a wordy script. Are you aware of that, Dave, when you start this process? Like the sort of medieval-esque, fantastical realm that we're in, the way that people talk is quite specific, isn't it? Like, are you aware of that wordiness when you sit down to write dialogue? And... Sorry, am I making sense here? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Very much so, Dan and David. No, I know exactly. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. Dan and David and Brian and I, we always try to find that there's a Venn diagram of things that people that sound modern, that a modern person could say, and another circle of things that don't sound too crazily high fantasy. And like we've got to write in the very narrow intersection of those two. So we don't want to sound too hokey, but at the same time, it is a different world. There are times we have to talk about the Lord of Light and prophecy and everything else. Oh, this is I remember this is my first time I think on set with you, Mark, was this scene.
Yeah, this was my first day of shooting. Again, another terrifying day for me. This is actually the only scene I actually got some kind of bona fide rehearsal for. I managed to meet up with Kerry and Stephen the day before to talk this through because I was obviously, my palms are sweating and just in memory of it being my first day. Again, right from the off, I was just amazed by Stephen's kind of willingness to explore, his kind of hunger to explore the character. And no two takes are alike. There's a continual exploration and digging around, trying to find the truth, trying to find the moment. When you go to work and when you've got people with that kind of craft and hunger for perfection, it's quite dizzying.
And I remember this room was incredibly tough to shoot in. It was incredibly tiny.
And you are my daughter.
I think this is actually the favorite scene. One of my favorite scene I think I wrote.
It's a great scene.
It's wonderful.
I think it was my favourite scene of the episode, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, digging into Stannis, where he's actually not quite marking time, but actually when he's not just actually planning a battle, was felt really new to me in terms of the series. And it was so great to actually see the latent love for his daughter there.
To be sadistic, one of the reasons we have that scene is not just we wanted to show another aspect of Stannis, but we wanted to show the bond between him and his daughter, so that the later scene at the end of the season, would pay off so much more and would just be so much more of a kick in the gut.
Yes, quite.
People are going to get really angry. When we shot the scene, did you notice the spiders?
I thought I might find them here.
No, I didn't.
So after a while, the heat from the candles rises up, and the spiders, which are all in the ceiling, they all start coming down.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
I wish I'd known. I'd have stuck the camera on them. That's fantastic.
Oh, terrifying.
Lord Went held a great tourney at Harrenhal. Everyone was there. The Mad King, your father, Robert Baratheon.
A very unpleasant old vault to shoot in a spectacular location in the bowels of this castle in Ireland. The way we staged this scene, I think in the way you wrote it, there was a continual echoes back to, of course, Robert and Ned's meeting down right at the beginning of season 1, even to the point of the staging, the way we staged the around Lyanna here and then the walk down the down through the old Stark tombs was all deliberately a kind of homage to that first season.
I mean, yeah, it was actually, I will credit David Benioff for the idea of setting this scene in the crypts. We were struggling in the outline in the first couple drafts of how to get Littlefinger and Sansa alone, and what is Littlefinger's plan here and everything else. And just putting her in the crypts, looking at her dead end, and having Littlefinger talk about like his own history with him, just kind of made everything click.
This character's incredible journey from the the dizzy princess going off in season 1 to King's Landing to actually not being happy, but actually really appreciating home here, revisiting the dead ancestors, and really seeing herself properly as a Stark for maybe the first time in her life.
Dressed for riding.
And she is now Lady Stark of Winterfell.
Where do you go?
King's Landing.
King's Landing.
Cersei sent for me.
This scene was originally actually in 2 parts.
You can't leave me here.
Down here and then actually up on the ramparts. For various reasons, we ended up combining the 2 scenes, didn't we, and shooting it all down in the catacombs here, which I railed against. I thought it would get too boring without a location switch, so it's very annoying to see how well it turned out.
Winter snows block his way. But first, he has to take Winterfell.
You don't know that.
I do. Once he liberates these lands from the Bolton.
Natalie, do you get a chance to hang out with the other cast members? Of course, because the shooting schedules and the 2 units shooting simultaneously. Do you guys ever get together and spend time together?
I miss Sophie so much. I was just looking at her, like missing her, actually. It's the amazing thing about the show is you never know season to season who you're going to be with. I just worked with John Bradley, actually, on another project, and we had so much fun because it was just a joy to finally get elongated time to hang out together. He's always up in the cold, and I'm always down in Croatia or Belfast. We cross over occasionally, maybe in the hotel in Belfast. Normally it's just junkets or Comic-Con or, that we see each other. So, but that's one of the things I love about the show is year on year, you don't know who your new, gang are going to be. It shifts around.
Yep.
We're all friends. It's after years and years, But everyone's so busy. We don't see each other out of shooting schedule because Game of Thrones has given us all such a platform for do other work. Everybody is always busy the other 6 months of the year, so don't really see each other then either. Kit Harington said he was going to have a housewarming party about 2 years ago. It never happened. Been too busy with work.
Yes, our production designer Deborah Riley, I think 2 seasons ago, she gave up her apartment and put everything in storage, and basically hasn't been home since.
I expect I'll be a married woman by the time you return.
No, I was actually just talking to some friends last night. Deb, around midway through production, I don't think she's sleeping anymore. Like I'll see her and she'll be running around and checking on everything, making sure everything's going right. And I'm like, Deb, you need to sit for a second.
You can see it on screen though, man. You really can.
Yeah.
Yep. This shot here, there were more conversations about how to achieve this shot than I think any other shot in the episode. Trying to shoot day for night and match it with green screens and where we could actually shoot it became quite a puzzle.
We all shot this. This is Port Stewart, right? Port Stewart Strand?
Yep, up on the north coast of Northern Ireland. When I first read your script, Dave, I had fantasies of being down on the coast of Spain or maybe North Africa, and then
you and me both.
I learned it was Port Stewart. Don't be afraid, that's not a real snake.
Breakfast.
St. Patrick chased all the snakes out of Ireland, right?
See, there's your second nerdy fact of the day.
But your lot give the singers a good ending.
I don't care what the song about.
That's actually a pretty good one.
No?
Oh yeah, I remember there was quite a bit of a difficulty with the biting of the snake.
Yep. We actually had a snake tasting at some point with the Home Economist. so that the filling was to the liking of both our actors. Not that they were at all fussy about it, we just had to make sure they could actually physically eat it.
When I came bursting into the room and earlier on in the episode, DC, were you actually eating? Were you?
Yeah.
Because I've got memories of you.
It was like
you were just eating, weren't you? Eating and eating and eating and eating.
The food was
like an actor's always got to make a choice.
Yeah, it was like grapes and I think it was ham or gammon or something. But the combination, like nowadays, we just wouldn't put together. It was like cheese and ham, and it was like, yeah. But it was, yeah. I mean, I never actually ate it. I ate the ham. That was about it. Yeah. But yeah, I think the grapes was off though. They spray it all.
The captain of that ship.
I can't eat poached salmon anymore because I made the mistake of taking a mouthful in a way in previous television show that was of medieval times as well, that I won't reference in an HBO extra DVD feature for another cable channel. But I made the mistake of taking a mouthful of poached salmon, and the scene took a lot longer than we expected, and I ended up eating like warm poached salmon all day, and it just made me feel so sick at the end of it. So you won't really see me eating this scene very often. I learnt my lesson there. Can't eat it at weddings anymore.
Yeah, right.
How many do you think you can take?
One. We were so pleased with our choice of location here on this staging this fight on the slope to give it an extra bit of jeopardy. The knock-on effect, of course, was how do we actually get the sand back to a point where the sand looked virgin after every take without, spending hundreds of thousands on visual effects to smooth the sand out. And of course, the answer was good old-fashioned manpower. We had this army of guys with rakes led by Brian, our amazing props guy. And after literally every single shot, they would descend as soon as we said cut and actually re-rake the whole sand area or put in the relevant continuity footprints and horse prints. A level of endeavour that you would never really, hopefully never notice on screen, but it was extraordinarily painstaking.
Camilla and her stunt riders here being able to ride these horses on this, I mean, not vertical slope, but incredibly steep slope. It was very impressive and worrisome when I was watching.
Yeah, there was a few moments where it was scary. There's particularly the horse rear that comes up shortly.
And I'm amazed. I mean, it happens every season, but I remember in the course of shooting this, it took a few days, and the weather kept changing. It'd be really sunny and then dark and cloudy, and somehow they matched everything here, so it doesn't feel like it was shot differently.
Yeah, they got it pretty close, didn't they? Stole that moment from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's homage.
Oh, yes. I recently did a project that Spielberg was producing, and I sat in his office, with making my presentation to him, and my eyes just kept drifting over his shoulder because on the wall is the original Rosebud sled from Citizen Kane framed on the wall of his office. It's just fantastic.
Oh, congrats, Mark, too. I remember, maybe this is too inside base, but I remember an early draft of the script, we actually had Jaime doing a little bit, and I think in the outline form, Jaime was much more competent with his other hand, and in the writing of it, and I think actually George, I think was also ranging, because he reads the outline every season, he rang in too, so it felt a little strange, and we were writing, we agreed, it felt too much like, oh, we've cut off his hand, but he's still a super fighter.
Right.
We wanted to give him more of a disability.
Beasts can run a day and night without tiring.
The journey that Nikolai has gone on with Jaime is just incredible over the course of the 5 seasons. I mean, Jaime Lannister really does win most women's viewers' hearts these days, I would imagine. Certainly does mine as a viewer.
I can't dig very well with one hand. Not at all, really.
No, I agree. For somebody who, pushed Bran out of a window in season 1, you can't help but just feel for this man whose destiny is to be a storied knight and have all these great tales and songs sung about him, who is pretty much a dismal failure at everything he sets out to do. And eventually, and you can feel the humanity coming through that character despite his terrible actions.
Yeah, the tragedy of the man who should have been great.
Yes.
Mama.
This was also shot in Port Stewart, right?
It was. Again, I'm sat there wishing that we had shot it in the Sahara Desert, but that's the way it goes. The performances are great, whatever the weather. Indira's such a classy actress. She's just amazing.
We don't need an army to start a war.
We actually had dinner. Like Dan and David took all the Sansa out for dinner the night before their first shoot. And there had been some transportation mishap, or instead of shooting when they were supposed to, they had 3 or 4 days stuck in this Northern Irish hotel together. Which actually ended up being great for them, but they had all these, they were telling Dan, David, and me and all their backstories they'd invented for their characters, and
great
how the roof always leaked under their beds. Bonding experiences.
We should give a shout out to Gary Pillau, who plays the sea captain here, who, bless him, actually was fine about being buried up to his head in sand for most of the day and having huge, genuine, real, live scorpions crawling all over his face. It was, that is not visual effects.
What a hero.
I wouldn't do that for $1 million.
Brave man. Ugh. How do they keep the scorpions from stinging? Do they still have a stinger?
I believe they do. If I remember rightly, they're just reluctant to sting unless they're really, really threatened.
So Gary was relying on reluctance?
Yes.
Well, all right.
What if they're having a bad day?
Yeah.
But the gods let us choose our weapons. My father pointed to the spear, and then to my mother's tears.
Poor Gary.
I made my choice long ago.
Oh, this day. I remember this was a fun day, Mark.
I think it became days, didn't it?
Oh, yes. You got the boat rocking here.
Again, it's a testament to our actors that these guys, tolerated this flotilla of boats moving around, trying to get this scene covered in a way that seems very simple, but actually, I think we got most of the wide shots done the first time we tried to shoot it, but then the wind came up so strongly that we were literally in danger of capsizing, so we had to abandon the shoot and come back another day when, of course, the weather conditions were so different for the close-up coverage. But luckily, again, the skill of our post-production team makes it match. It was so painstaking to get the camera into any particular angle, and yet both actors, Ian and Peter, deliver such fantastic performances. And again, as Natalie said earlier, it's another great cross-pollination of characters.
Westeros is west. We're heading east.
I'm not taking you to your sister.
You said you were taking me to the Queen.
I am. Queen Daenerys Targaryen. She's the queen I serve.
What a waste of a good kidnapping. So happens I was heading there myself.
What business would you have with a queen?
Gold and glory. Oh, and hate. If you'd ever met my sister, you'd understand.
I remember this day, actually showing up to this day, and it's an inland lake, so you would think calm water, and the waves are like 3 or 4, I could be exaggerating, 3 or 4 feet high. And I'd gone out with some friends the night before in Belfast, and was still feeling the effects. And then we had to get on these small boats to follow this boat around. The world's smallest little dinghy. There was no breakfast to be had, or lunch that day.
I thought you were a little quiet that day.
Is it possible that you were running?
And Ian's actually a sailor, right? He was actually sailing this boat.
Yes, he actually, we had all sorts of mechanisms set up with a wire going under the surface of the water to a towboat, but I think, except when we were actually going directly into the wind for the needs of the light. Yes, most of the time Ian was actually sailing the boat with consummate ease.
She found out, didn't she? Found out and exiled.
Yeah, actually, the bigger boat, given the waves here, was probably a lucky stroke of fortune.
That's probably true, yeah.
One might even say desperate. You think Daenerys will execute me and pardon you? I'd say the reverse is just as likely.
Everyone looks happy enough from up here. What?
And now, of course, we come to a whole section of the episode which was originally scripted in another episode. So I can take no credit for this whole glorious section. It was actually shot by Jaime Pedeswa, who directed episodes 5 and 6 of season 5. We got to a point in post where it became obvious that certain restructuring would benefit the storytelling process. And so there was a little bit of jigsaw moving around of sections. Which sections moved? Do you remember, Dave?
Yeah, you actually shot in the incredible riot, like Dany's passing of the sentence and the riot in Croatia, which moved to episode 2, I believe, just to have that whole arc with Bossador play out in one episode. And then this is actually also, I take no credit for this either, this is Brian Cogman, who wrote this one as well. And they moved this forward. And then I think you shot like a really lovely, that Stannis and Sam and Jilly scene, which I think then also moved to 5.
That's right, in the library, yeah.
Library,
That's a really nice scene.
100. Will you be joining us, Sir Barristan?
I think I can protect you from his dark.
No way. We were talking. There's been a lot of conversation about Sir Barristan's death because he's still alive in the books and ruling Marine. But I can shed some light, like the writers' room conversations. I remember we discussed having like hewing closer to the books, but just chose instead because we wanted to have there be more stakes. We wanted Dany to lose people close to her in an insurrection, and it seemed like he would be the best candidate for this. And he's supposed to be this amazing, the best knight in Westeros, and we would see him fight one time.
Yep.
Is that what you used to tell men before you set them to butchering each other for sport?
Your Grace, today is the traditional start of the fight.
Hey Mark, how do you find shooting in this audience chamber? Like, it's very hard for us to write for this because it's so easy to come off stilted and everyone's so far from each other. But
yes, it was one of the kind of Game of Thrones moments of walking into these huge paint halls where they built the Titanic and find this vast set, as indeed with the throne room, where again as a newcomer to the series, where it's slightly overwhelming the sheer scale of it, but of course keeping the personal and the intimacy, which is some of the Game of Thrones is just so brilliant at this combination of the epic and the intimate. It is a challenge in there. It really is. It's a testament to Emilia and the gang there that they do actually, draw us in despite the kind of very austere scale of the room. I talked to Jaime Pedeswa, the director of this whole sequence, about the challenges of shooting this section, which was in the old town of Split for the most part, I believe, back in Croatia. And huge challenge for him, his initial instinct was to have it more open, particularly for this section here, the ambush. As you can see, it's a very beautiful location, but his instinct was to shoot through foreground and to track through it to increase the kind of kinetic energy of the piece. And the challenge here was I think you guys, Dave, and your writing team were very specific that it had to be in this narrow kind of hallway section to increase that sense of entrapment. And that became a real challenge in the choreography of the piece, which I think they did really well.
I remember actually I went and watched Jacob's stunt rehearsal, which is fantastic. I think he was this in another aspect of the narrowness actually helped us is that he could practice in his flat. Yeah, our stunt choreographers this year really did a bang-up job, like Raul Yarlam and those guys.
Yeah, a great team.
But I think we also, from the writing perspective, we wanted in the narrowness because the Unsullied are supposed to be great soldiers, and in an open area where they could form ranks, rebels would really have no chance.
Right.
Here comes Ian's final moments.
I'll miss his character. He's so incredibly likable.
Oh, lovely man. And he did a great job here. It was a great way to go out.
Yeah.
Compared to some other ways in our show. Those masks are just so haunting. Remember when I saw the design for that, I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's great design.
That's it.
Grey Worm is just amazing.
He's fantastic, isn't he? When we choreograph these fights, there's always a big debate over which sword blade will be in camera, which blood will be in camera, and which will be added in post-production. Obviously, primarily we need that the reality of the sequence, but we try to balance that with, obviously it's expensive to put a visual effect blade and visual effect blood in, so we try to keep as most in camera through special effects. But these blood spurts, and when a blade comes right through a character, that's usually a visual effects addition.
Because I think we have every blade has like a camera version, right, and then a tin fighting version, and then a rubber hit version.
Yep, yeah. There's a half sword, the rubber one, and the real. Yeah.
What a sequence! Whoa.
Yeah, that's some sequence, isn't it?
Just a few days filming.
I know. I love that I can take lots of credit for it, and I didn't shoot a beat of it.
Yeah, same here.
Right, well.
Yeah, great talking to everyone.
Thanks for listening. This was Mark Mylord, director of episodes 3 and 4.
Well, this is Dave Hill, writer of episode 4.
Natalie Dormer, Marjorie Terrell.
Dean Charles Chapman, Tommen Rathian.
Bye, guys. Good luck with the projects.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, and you two, good luck with scouting and everything else that you're doing for the next season. Sounds fun.
Thanks, Natalie. Yeah, I can't wait to see you.